All right, fam, we're back. We are back once again, my friends. Let me just get this dropped on the channel. You know the deal. You know the deal. One sec. All right, peeps. So we actually do have a wine tonight. Was at the dinner, and we got it right here. We got a Chiroble. So we're back to another one of the Beaujolais crew, and I believe this was the same, the Domaine des Maisons Neuves. I believe this is the same producer who did the Moulin Avant. At any rate, though, Chiroble is right here. And as you can see out of the Beaujolais Cru, it is actually the highest elevation, the Beaujolais Cru. And the other important thing to notice about Chiroble is it's known to be one of the most light and bright ones. And in lesser vintages, it doesn't tend to do so well. So you could say it's a lesser one of the Beaujolais Cru. I think that's a fair way to describe it, but it's a nice wine. No question about that. It's a nice wine. What was really coming out with it, it's a very, very bright, almost like a standard Beaujolais. You have tons and tons of bright, delicious, scrumptious little fruits. But what you also have is white pepper. So what's nice about it is for not a very big price point, high teens, maybe like $15, $16, maybe up to 20, but less than 20, no question. Um, you're getting a very, very easy drinking wine that everybody's going to like, but has multiple layers of complexity, but not enough to lose people. So you got nice bright fruit, but you have some secondary characteristics with this subtle white pepper. And the structure is really nice. It's got a bright acidity. Alcohol is not heavy or oppressive on this. I don't know the actual percentage. 13%, which is about right. So it's good stuff. Anyway, we just have a short show tonight. I'm going to be doing, by the way, a bunch of shorter videos on various topics, addressing things as they come up, just to get some more stuff on the channel. I don't want to limit us to these Q&As, and obviously we had a really great show the other day that we did with Clinton Francis, which if you guys haven't checked that out, you got to check it out. But we're going to be doing some short, brief shows on here, and so you may miss them. It's okay if you miss them. I don't actually want to necessarily set times for all of them, just because I want to get some content out there. But what I'll try to do is we'll have a weekly Q&A, and that's going to be more structured. We're going to stick more to that time, and maybe what we'll do is for the Q&A, we'll have a wine, since that's kind of the tradition, but we won't do it for any of the other videos. I think that's kind of a fair compromise between looking forward and tradition. Tonto, you're saying I was wondering why you go live on YouTube and on Twitch. Is Twitch for their topics? Twitch is for the COVID cabal topics. It's not dating relationship stuff. Every video on Twitch deletes after 2 weeks. It's on the bigger picture stuff that's going on right now. It's not really relevant for the YouTube channel, which is about, we go into esoteric stuff sometimes here because there's practical, but, I'll just be honest, guys. If I talked about that on here, I get banned. And I'm already shadow banned on Twitter. I'm already got essentially a follower lock. It's extremely difficult to get followers on Twitter as a result of the algorithmic weapons used against me. So yeah, I'm not going to do it here as well. So everybody else who's done that stuff has gotten banned. Anyway, let's get into the topic at hand. So first things first, before we go, because only 3 questions, not a lot of questions tonight. But I did want to talk about something that showed up on the timeline just before I jumped on this show, which was this social worker, she was saying, are you really low maintenance or are you just used to being neglected? Now, this is an interesting comment. And unfortunately, given the nature of her profession, there's probably an inclination to dismiss it, because my suspicion is that the way that she uses this inference is to make people into victims. And that's not a good thing, right? That's not a good thing. And the reality is that a lot of people are more chill than others. You don't want to make people hypersensitive. But I have to say this, I have to say it. She actually has a really good point. What I've noticed over and over again dealing with clients and dealing with guys who really struggle to get their needs met with women, they struggle to put themselves out there and really to enforce boundaries, is that they're all low maintenance. Low maintenance is like a common thing because, as a guy in particular, you're not supposed to be high maintenance, right? You're not supposed to throw a fit. You're supposed to suck it up. You're supposed to be stoic. And if, as a guy, you do get emotional, a lot of women will uh, kind of, manipulate, gaslight, abuse you, and tell you that, oh, you're not a man because you're getting upset. So they'll do something really offensive and really fucked up. But then when you get upset, they'll tell you you're overreacting, that you have a problem. Now, it's not to say that men can't do this to women too, but I just want to make this point that the abused party, the party that isn't used to getting its needs met, actually does tend to have an internalized belief that its needs don't matter. Now, is it necessarily fair to call this neglect? It could be a bit of a stretch, but the fundamental line of the argument is correct, which is that, are you really low maintenance, or are you not used to getting your needs met? I think I use that terminology better than neglected. Because, as I said, neglected can come across as if there's some level of malice going on when there isn't necessarily. So the point here is, I just want to say this, is that consider this: if you're a low maintenance guy, but you're not getting the kind of behavior from women you want, you're not getting the kind of outcomes in life you want, consider the fact that maybe what's going on is you're not really chill, you're passive, and you don't believe that you deserve to have anything you want. So you've crafted a narrative in your head that you just shouldn't get it. You don't deserve to get it. And you expect not to get it. And so you would never act in a way that would allow you to get it. So be very careful about that. Think about it, because the root of all your problems is coming from that. So, with that said, let's go to these questions. Question number 1: what do you do when you're interested in a woman who has previously dated men who were seemingly decent guys, only to abuse them later? She's scared to connect again for obvious reasons, but isn't completely closed off and even seems genuinely interested. How do you move forward with a woman like that? Um, all right, let me reread this again, because I just got to make sure. Uh, Bob, I'll get to your question next. It's a good question. I just want to. I'm gonna reread this because I don't feel like I don't think it's completely clear. What do you do when you're interested in a woman who has previously dated men who were seemingly decent guys, only to abuse them later? She's scared to connect again for obvious reasons, but isn't completely closed off and even seems genuinely interested. How do you move forward? I don't really understand. I don't really understand this stuff. It's not structured. It's not written in a clear way. It's not obvious that she would be as scared to connect again if she was with decent guys and she abused them later. Um, so I'm just gonna skip it because I don't even understand the question. How do I move forward with a woman like that? I don't know exactly what kind of woman you're talking about. If if she abused guys that she was with and she's scared to connect, it's just to simply put, she has intimacy issues, and she's when she feels negative about herself, she becomes emotionally abusive. So I wouldn't move forward with a woman like that. Yeah, I wouldn't move forward with it. That's the short answer. Okay, Bob, your question here. Can you expound on the 8 out of 10 men dating lower tier, but she takes care of you and serves her purpose? On or 8 out of 10 men dating lower tier, but she takes care of you and serves her a purpose. So, Bob, just to clarify, are you saying that you've observed the phenomenon where 8 out of 10 men date lower tier than them, but these women take care of them and you know serve their purpose, as in sex, femininity, etc. Just clarify that for me. Clarify that for me, and then I'll go and answer that question. In the meantime, though, I'm going to go to this next one. Pat, would you mind addressing sexual trauma in one of your live streams? I know you've just addressed genuine abuse before, but I am talking more about the softer forms like porn, pop culture, and other induced programming. Would love it if you could tackle it from both the male and female perspective. It's probably a big topic, so I would understand if you put this on the back burner. You're a godsend either way. Cheers. No, I'd love to tackle this. I'd love to tackle this. So okay. So obviously sexual trauma in its really overt form is when you are actually physically abused by somebody else. And that can be sort of a more superficial physical abuse, or it can be violent. It can get pretty bad, right? All of it's bad. But sexual trauma is also exposing a child at a younger age to explicit material. And the reason for that is it warps their perception of sexuality. You can look at abuse. Abuse is something that warps perception in a negative way. That's a way to look at abuse. So physical abuse will warp your perception of what, you know, any sort of authority or protector, or um, what the kind of it'll pollute the dynamic, basically. So you'll associate authority with violence, with physical abuse. Sexual abuse is you associate sex with some sort of anxiety or trauma. um, Porn fits the bill, especially explicit porn, the kind of porn that we have more and more today. And pop culture and a lot of the programming that we have, the induced programming as it's being told. Like, for instance, if you guys look at a lot of Disney stuff, um, there's all sorts of subliminal programming. And you can say, oh, well, kids don't know anything about that. But what it does is if you have some cartoon character's face is really just like a penis, then it creates more and more impressions that they get drawn towards that down the road. People who are a lot smarter than you or I understand subliminal programming, and they drop it everywhere, and it creates induction and it pulls people towards it. Okay, so what it does is so for instance, as a man, it does it for both men and women, but in every case, it sort of creates inferiority and um, objectifying dynamic. So porn is interesting in that it objectifies everybody at once, standard porn. So if you're a man watching porn, you're watching other men have sex. So what that does is that puts you in the position of being an observer, right? And so you're looking at other guys, and let's be honest here, they're getting guys who are almost always well endowed, bigger guys, well endowed guys. And so an average guy is going to look at this stuff and he's going to feel a sense of inferiority about the whole thing. Um, or he very well could, at least, right? It's not guaranteed. But so what occurs is that he gets programmed to not be proactive in a sexual exchange with a woman. He begins to feel like a woman needs to act a certain way, and he has anxiety often about being too aggressive himself, or being, really embodied. Women, for their part, also feel a sense of being used because they look at themselves basically in porn. They're supposed to perform, right? Men and women are both supposed to perform, and they're kind of sexual objects. So they have to look at themselves increasingly as sexual objects, um, and really what happens to women on porn is, it's, on one hand, you could say it's empowering because they're often the assertive ones, but they're also being assertive in their degradation. It always ends with the woman being degraded. So you can see how this stuff starts to set wiring for both sexes. The other thing about it is that, because of the nature of the interactions, because of the nature of the film, it can start off in maybe more of a vanilla thing at first, but a lot of the porn algorithms are designed to get more and more extreme. And what it does is it hijacks this sexual circuit, which you could call, it's based on cortisol. So sexual arousal is actually, there's two different circles for arousal. There's one that's much more based on connection, and this is what you might, when you ever heard of two people like making love, right? um or really just feeling totally connected to each other. They just want to hold each other, they want to be with each other. It's very intimate. um that's that circuit, and that's a more healthy sexual circuit. It's like a bonding thing. It's a beautiful thing. The other circuit is based on cortisol. It's based on stress. And so what they do with a lot of the porn algorithms is that they'll expose you to shocking material, because shocking material actually, it creates tension, which then creates arousal, and that then demands a release. And so you wonder why you have like cat boys and all sorts of weird shit today. Well, the reason you have all that stuff, in part, is because if you pace someone enough sexually, if you expose them to enough sexually explicit content on a regular basis, and their circuit that they're fixated onto is the cortisol circuit, they're actually going to demand increasingly weird sexual experiences in order to get off. And this is why you have the proliferation of all sorts of alternative lifestyles. I just want to make a point here. When I was growing up, Abercrombie and Fitch was very salacious, which just showed, you know, shirtless, handsome guys, and showed, hot, all American kind of women. That was pretty salacious back in the day. Uh, Now, sex is everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere, and the reason that's relevant is because actually people are kind of desensitized from sex. I remember growing up, it was still kind of like, we weren't in like a prude culture at that point, but a lot of like sexual stuff was, people doing sexual things, like it was like, wow, like that's that's like serious. So like, the Titanic comes out and you see Kate Winslet's tits. You're like, oh shit, this is something that we really gotta censor and make sure people don't see. As a result, there was a higher level of collective stimulation from sort of basic sexual stuff. Whereas now, it's like there's so much depraved shit that's been normalized that you don't really have that kind of, like, people are getting into extremely bizarre stuff just even to feel something. You know what I mean? Just to even get off, because regular sex um, is boring. And that's degeneracy in a nutshell. That's why that circuit, the lust circuit, when you hear people talk about how, oh, well, you got to keep, you got to get more exciting, you got to do this and this and this and this and this. Um, it's not really about, if you're chasing more and more sexual highs, what's going to happen is you're going to end up gay. I'm not joking about that. Like, it's actually, I know a few guys like this who got really into pickup and went and hooked up with tons and tons of girls, and eventually they got bored of it because they'd done like everything with it, and then they started actually hooking up with guys because it was easier. And Michael Foster talked about this on Tony Bruno's show a few weeks back. But if you want to go biblical with it, when a society gets to its peak degeneracy, all the women, the women all become basically whores, and the guys all become gay, basically. Um, that's I'm just saying that's how that's the trajectory of it, and because that is where the sort of lust takes both sexes at the end of the day. So you can see from all of this stuff how it becomes traumatic, and if you get somebody caught, like, the capacity to get pulled into the lust circuit's always there, but the earlier you wire someone on it, if you abuse someone, especially when they're younger, if you expose them to that circuit when they're younger, then what happens is that they begin to associate everything sexual down that circuit. It's very difficult for them to even be able to have the other circuit. The more healthy sex is about connection. So, yeah, that's basically the point. The point here. That's how it really begins to mess it up. And so women begin to believe that they are not worthy of actually having a guy. They're not worthy of sex with. They're not worthy of real connection or love. They are just a hole. They actually begin to believe that, even if they don't consciously tell themselves that. Um, Whenever a girl's bragging about how she can get any guy she wants, what she's saying is that she's damaged goods, and that she knows that she's not going to be able to. It's like she has to, like, say, I don't need to get a guy to commit to me because I can get any guy I want. It's like, let me take all I'm worthy of and go with that, and emphasize what I know I can get. The thing is, it's not even that a guy, some simp, wouldn't say, hey, you do deserve to have someone serious. The issue is that the girl herself knows she doesn't deserve it. And so she inhibits it. She blocks it. And guys, for their part, become too voyeuristic. And so they become obsessed with um, the physical aspects of a woman having to behave a certain way, validate them a certain way, behave sexually a certain way. Um, it just warps perceptions. But the biggest thing about this is it's not even really just the perceptions, it's about the circuit. What circuit does it wire? Guys who like are porn addicted, it's not because they love the porn. It's that what happens is that they get addicted to, they're anxious, and they get addicted to this hyper stimulation. It's not that they actually, like, enjoy what they're watching, or they enjoy the experience of looking at porn. It's that it's a trauma loop. They get anxious and then to deal with it, which is why women who get sexually abused tend to become nymphos. Um, Even though, yeah, there's all sorts of like vibrator addiction, etc., that come with it. All right, good question. Hope I gave a pretty detailed answer there. Now, Bob, your question, can you expand on the fact that 8 out of 10 men date lower tier women who take care of them and serve your purpose? All right. So here's the thing. Looks are a threshold issue. I firmly believe that. I've seen it so many times and I've seen no evidence against it. A guy needs a woman to be attractive enough for him that he wants to sleep with her, right? And he's also happy about being seen with her. And guys have a range of standards. Some are a little bit higher than others. Um, Also, everybody's is subjective. They have their own personal standards. So the reason a guy would date beneath his level, part of it has to do just with the basic ideas and tenets of hypergamy, which is that a guy is, men, women date across and up when it comes to men. So you are going to get women interested in men who are either at a minimum at their level and really more likely above them. And the men who are beneath them, they're not going to be interested in. So as a result, if a man is dating up, well, that's difficult to sustain. And if a guy is dating up, it's usually that people say that because he's funny and he's rich and he's got good game, right? He's confident, but he's not that attractive. Maybe he's short, maybe he's ugly. Um, and so people will say, "Oh, well, he dated up." But he didn't really date up, actually, though. If you look at the whole thing holistically, so the reason that guys will do that, though, if a guy, even if he's attractive, even if like a guy's like, what maybe a woman would consider a 9 or a 10, right? He would he would date a girl who is pretty. So if he's a 9 or a 10, he might date a girl who's a 7 or an 8. And there's a couple of reasons for that. It could be his own confidence issues because a lot of guys who are, pretty boys actually don't have a very core masculine confidence. But a lot of what could actually be going on is just that she's easier to deal with. So she hit the threshold, but she behaves better. She treats him better. Why would such a guy date a girl who's more attractive, but not more attractive in the sense that not attractive enough? Like he's already turned on by the girl who's a 7 or an 8. So the 9 or the 10 turns him on just as much, but comes with a whole set of other issues, which is maybe bad attitude, bad, you know, courting attention from other guys, all sorts of crap. And that's the real thing here. That's the reason that guys do it. And a lot of guys do it because it's just simply, as a man, is the purpose of your life just to simply have a woman? Um, do you feel like you need, like, is looks the only thing that matters to you, to the extent that you are going to disregard a girl who actually makes you happy and you're physically attracted to because you could maybe get a girl who's hotter? Um, I think a lot of people will say, no, I wouldn't do that. And if you were saying that, yeah, I have to get the hottest girl, you're probably coming out of ego because you want people to acknowledge you could get the hottest girl. So those are the reasons, Bob. You feel free to ask a follow up if you'd like to. Last question on the list here, though. How should a man handle a situation where his girl is dealing with medical emergencies, hospital, etc., and her long term ex, never married, comes into the picture? Like he wants to help, visit in the hospital, etc. Not sure if I should tolerate this or not. Given the circumstances, it would seem selfish, but at the same time, kind of cuckish to go with the flow. Um, it's a really good question. Very interesting question. Very, very interesting question. So, um, The standard answer, and I would say the answer in the vast majority of situations would be, "Hey, dude, fuck off." Right? Like, it's not your girlfriend is in the hospital. She's got a medical emergency, and the ex wants to come into the picture, wants to visit. It's not his place, and especially when they weren't married, it's not his place, and he really shouldn't be there. If I Rather than try to, I'm gonna make the assumption here that the girl herself is not really, how do I put it? The girl herself is out of the picture, right? She's too sick to be able to make decisions. So I'm just going to make the assumption here that you're the one who's able to make these decisions. You're the one who has to make these decisions. Um, I don't necessarily, personally, if you had a rock solid relationship, I would kind of confront the guy and I'd be like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "I just, I wanted to say some stuff and blah blah." I would give them, you know, 10 minutes together to talk. I would do it personally. I don't think that there's a right answer here. I think it's so contextual. What's going on in the relationship? What was the nature of their relationship? How did it end? How did she feel about him? My policy with dealing with exes is that if an ex enters the picture, okay, your person should never go out of their way and never try to involve themselves with an ex while you guys are together. Huge red flag. However, if an ex reaches out to that person and has some stuff that they want to say, they want to engage with, your girlfriend with, I'm of the opinion that you should always give them an opportunity to do it. Or at least I won't say always, but I'll say I would give that to my wife if that situation happened, because I don't have any, I'm not concerned at all about it. It's not a threat to me. And it's more, I want to hold space for her to deal with the situation, to get closure on the situation. If that other person comes into the picture and that other person is trying to, they have something to say, maybe they have to clear something out. What difference is it to me if, okay, hey, my ex really, like, I haven't heard from him in years. He says he wants to get lunch. Um, I would say, do you want to meet him? And she'd probably say, not really. I don't know. It's like, if you want to meet him, you can meet him for lunch. It's fine. Like, I would be okay with it. I would not be okay with something that was like, hey, we're going to go get drinks. We're going to go get dinner. Something that's more potentially romantic, but something more platonic, like we're going to grab a coffee or we're going to grab lunch. Um, I'm not, I don't have an issue with that personally. So in the situation where your girl's in the hospital and the ex comes into the picture, I would I would ask him, hey, what's going on, and say, what do you have to say to her? It says, I just have a couple blah blah blah. I, he's not allowed to help, but if your girlfriend's dying or she's really sick and he wants to say something, that's fine. If he wants to come into the picture and help, then absolutely not. It's not some kind of thing where he gets to stick around and take from your responsibility. So that's what I would say. He can't help. He can have a quick visit, depending on the context of what's happened. Archie, fan of your message, Pat. Lady here. I have a girlfriend who constantly gets into relationships, hookups, and it feels draining. Does a woman always attract lower energy with constant relationships? it's a great inference, and the answer is yes. Yeah, that is actually the answer. And that's why women who do the classic branch swinging where they jump from guy after guy after guy after guy don't really grow. They're stuck in a perpetual limbo because they're running from themselves into another guy. And being a woman being by herself and having to, see herself and not necessarily get attention from other guys to validate herself. It's actually really important for her development and integration. So if you're feeling drained being around her, it's because she actually is a drain. Her jumping from person to person is her sucking energy off of those people. And that's the reason that she does it. She jumps from person to person, from guy to guy, because each guy provides her with a temporary boost of validation and a temporary boost of because what happens is that whether the guy is simply wants to have sex with her or especially if he actually has feelings for her and wants to be with her, then she feels good about herself. But if once the honeymoon phase passes, the high from that declines. And so she has to jump to a new guy to get that new high. But my sense is that if she's doing this with guys, she does it with everybody around her. I mean, women, it's never, she may target guys predominantly to get validation and get energy, but she's going to drain from everybody around her because then even with her new love affair, she's going to probably like to have some sort of acknowledgement from her friends about how, you know, let's talk about the new drama. Oh my God, he's so cute. Oh my God. It's just the Sex in the City bullshit. Yeah. Yeah. Oof. Yeah. She's always looking for validation from friends too. I support the idea that there are toxic women and men should vet properly. So these people just repeat cycles. Well, yeah, they repeat them as long as they want to repeat them, as long as they can repeat them. At a certain point, what happens is that she's not going to be able to get the same amount of validation as she could when she was younger. And also, her friends are not going to care as much. And so eventually, there's sort of a feeling like, okay, it's time for me to settle down. Um, and this is very red pill stuff because red pill talks about the lowest resolution of female nature. Yeah, at 34, she's really, even if she's taking care of herself, um, she could keep doing it. I mean, a lot of big city girls keep doing this stuff way too long, but probably will start to look for like a relationship now because that's the new thing. Other people are getting into relationships and no one cares as much about her drama. So they look for a new thing. And it's my pleasure. My pleasure, Archie. So yeah, it's sad. But the people they do repeat cycles and they kind of mirror a lot of what the social environment though tells them to do. And this is why I'll just kind of close with this. This is why, even though it's said often in a very sexist way, but it's true. But women are products of the environment and the community. So the thing is now, oh, it's so exciting to have a new guy, to have a new thing, to have a new. Well, if you went back, these women who don't individuate, who don't have a sense of who they are, these women in this current degenerate age are very self-destructive because they will keep seeking the new high. Whereas in the past, that sort of competitive impulse for drama and success would have been channeled to having like another baby. I'm not joking about that. That's actually, if you want to get to raw female competition, It has to do with having babies. That's and even a lot of women won't admit it, but you can see how other women respond to other women who have it, and you can say, "Oh crap," if a woman has an attractive husband and a good life and a lot of kids, then she's the envy of other women. And people can get, lost in all the bullshit and drama, but it won't change a thing. Last thing about the friend, though, is that if she's really not satisfied and she just settles to kind of for the social status or whatever, of course, it doesn't bode well in the long term because those are the kind of women who are going to cheat. They'll look for things under behind the scenes down the road because they'll be bored. They're always bored because they haven't dealt with themselves. If you're bored, you're boring. If they're always looking for a new outside stimulation. So anyway, well, that's it for tonight. Like I said, we're gonna do a couple of short videos, more and more short videos, talking about a bunch of little random topics. So I guess I'll say that. But we'll have another Q&A next week. I appreciate you guys. Tonto, thank you so much for the kind words. Archie, thank you for the kind words. Bob, appreciate all of you, and we'll see you next time.